Okay, we're trying a couple different camera angles today. So we'll see how we like this. Oh, I have headphones on. We should take these off. Okay, this Drakkenheim episode opens up with the group gathering up the lilies that have been left on this pond, and they decide to leave and head to Emberwood. Well, at least that's where they hope to go. I still had some stuff prepped from last time, and they had to roll for encounters again as they leave the garden. And of course, someone rolls a natural one. The group ends up coming upon these flower beds located on either side of this road, a little bit off of the beaten path. But inside these, they see what look to be more lilies. Of course, they approach to get a little bit closer inspection, and all of a sudden they hear, "Keep off the grass! Keep off the grass!" And a whole bunch of garden gnomes spring up out of the flower beds to attack. Again, I can't remember all the combat, this is months ago, but it was quickly dispatched. They weren't really a hard enemy. In the process, they decide to collect all of these teeny tiny little gnome weapons, and they also collect the bottom half of one of the gnomes because they broke it in half. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, honestly. They return to Emberwood, and when they reach just the outskirts of town, up in that tree, we meet, once again, Emma Crow, the daughter from the first episode, who kind of likes to spy from this tree, and she sees Morgan, our big, beefy barbarian, and she goes up to her and says, "My dad has something ready for you. Can you really use that weapon?" Of course, this spurs a bunch of questions about fighting with an axe. What do my players do but hand those little tiny gnome axes to this small child? Yeah, that's not gonna be bad at all. At this point, they decide to split the party. Yes, Morgan and Delia go to visit Tobias Crow at the smithy and pick up Morgan's big meteorite-infused weapon. When they go to do that, of course, Tobias looks extremely exhausted, yet extremely happy about the material he has been given. He starts saying how much he loved working on this particular weapon and how he has so many more ideas, and if they could find any more meteor trunks to work with, he could design them something else as well, and he'd even cut them a deal. Delilah, though, thinks that this is a bad sign, that he has been working with a delirium-infused meteor and, maybe is going mad. At this point, too, I believe both Delilah and Anastasia start commissioning more items for themselves. Then we kind of move over to our other two, Ik and Noct, who went to visit River. Again, they have decided not to give all the lilies up. Delilah has kept a few, decide to give most of the lilies to River. When they get there, they see, of course, River, but they also see a strange black cat that is sitting kind of on the desk, just kind of watching them. River pays it no mind. As they give the Eldritch lilies to River says, "Archwizard Runeweaver will be greatly pleased with all of this." And at the same time, the cat jumps off the desk and leaves the office. They start to recount their mission and who they encountered in the gardens. River, she doesn't care that much about the old royalty, but she does say, "Pity, if she was beyond saving, then you did what had to be done. That's the unfortunate world we are living in right now." But at the same time, Noct catches something out of the corner of his eyes as she speaks, and he pushes a little bit harder. River hesitates before saying that they need to be careful about who they tell about Lenore. She says certain green-cloaked folks might not be as excited to hear about how they dealt with Lenore. Regardless, she tells them that they will have a special surprise here tomorrow based off of these Eldritch lilies, and she will give them each one. Ik also buys a bunch of supplies to help with contamination because pretty much everybody at this point is contaminated to some degree. Nobody's above a level 2. There are some people at a level 2. I tried. hard. They all regroup at their little cabin, and Delilah tries to plant one of those lilies that she got from the flower pots near the gnomes in the bottom half of a gnome and puts it in the window. They rest, recover, get rid of the contamination. Unfortunately for Delilah, she doesn't roll very well with her nature check. And in the morning that Lily dies, they return to River, collect their syringes, which greatly freaks out both Anastasia and Delilah. River also offers them a contract saying that they are hoping to find someone called the Pale Man, who is held up in Kleinberg Estate. Anastasia's last name is Kleinberg, and so this piques her interest and she starts asking a little bit about it, but not a lot because she's also an 11-year-old. River explains that they really want to work with the Pale Man, get copies of his research on contamination to see if that can help them. But they highly doubt that he's going to be willing to give it up, considering that he was a malfeasant wizard that has been expelled from the academy. At this point, though, it is the day of the negotiation. So this evening, they are to negotiate an alliance between both the Silver Order and the Hooded Lanterns. So of course, that means they have to go back into the city. Yay! For me, at least. On their way, of course, they roll some ones and encounter a giant pit in the middle of the street. I have our player who plays Ikik roll a D100, and in the pit, they find the dead body of our earlier rogue party member, Harmon. He is definitely dead in that delirium pit. At the same time, they also run into their rivals who are struggling to open a box. It looks like it is locked. It's pretty nice of a box, and they think there's some sort of treasure inside. They, for once, don't actually just go all murder hobo on them and decide to negotiate, saying that they don't really want to fight. They can help open the box and then be on their way. And that's what they do, and they let them take the treasure, which was crazy to me. And that was the end of that session. If you like what you're watching, consider supporting me on Patreon, the best way to support creators on YouTube. You can get behind the scenes, plus you can get ad-free versions of my videos. Also, live streams, there's shop discounts, hopefully some paper products coming out, definitely a magazine in the works. There's lots of stuff there. Link in the description. So here's some things that I feel like I could have done better. Starting at this session, I started doing a decreasing die type for random encounters. What I mean by this is I was getting tired of prepping all of these extra encounters like I did last time for the garden area and then nobody rolling any ones. I want things to happen. Sure, I could just force it to happen, but I feel like it's a little bit more fun when the players roll that number. So I found this, don't quote me, but probably a Reddit thread. They start with a d20 and then each time they don't have an encounter, they decrease the die number. So going from a d20 to a d12, then a d10, until they roll a 1. When they roll a 1, it goes back up to the top at a d20. Just increasing our chances of getting a 1. And it definitely worked. Most of the time we get to a d8 and that's about it for that. I continue using this method going forward. Highly recommend if you're looking to increase the chances of a random encounter. In fact, I actually use this technique now for my West Marches when we are patrolling or traveling through a bunch of hexes. Each day of travel decreases the chance, but also it depends on the color of the hex. But anyway, back to this. The biggest surprise for this one was that my murder hobos did not choose violence. They did not kill the rivals. I expected a battle, but they actually ended up negotiating and preventing the barbarian from leaping over a bunch of things. I think there was a little bit of combat. They each knocked one character down. So one character on the player's team and one character on the rival team. And so called a truce at that. I don't remember who instigated the standoff. Harmon's death, there was a 25% chance that he would have lived. And of course, our good friend Ikik did not roll in that margin, and therefore Harmon was dead. I did this partially to have like closure on that little story chapter, but also, which they didn't do, he was going after a giant crystal down there, which they could have used, not to mention below the crystal was more meteorite that I stuck down there so they could take it back to work on, but they didn't go in the pits. I wanted to mention was I was definitely unprepared for shopping at rivers and getting supplies. And I think that's one thing this book does not do well. It tells you a bunch of different boons, but doesn't really give you any examples. And this is something I struggle with any pre-written module. Figuring out what shop inventory is, and of course what kind of boons, or if it says something like they'll give up 3 rare magic items. Well, like, that doesn't tell me exactly what they would be giving up, you know? And so I always have to like really do research, and honestly, that's a lot of prep time. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Let me know in the comments if you do. Picking items, it can be fun, but when it's something like a shop, it's tedious to me. I'm sure there are resources out there though that have full shop inventories that I could have pulled from. I just didn't because I was also in a hurry to get things done. So there's that. That is the end of this episode. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!